Well, they don't know about that.
Well, they do now.
I guess so. If people actually watch all the way to the end, okay, we'll do that. Outro crew, I got a little surprise for you. May not make you too happy, might make you a little sad. You may not care either way. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Wreck Bike Rebuild Garage. Today we are day 14 on our CBR 600RR build. We are missing a couple of spacers for the front motor mount bolts, so I'm going to focus on everything from centerline back on the machine today. I don't really want to pull the jack out from underneath the bike without having all the motor mount bolts tight. So we have some rear sets, I have stator cover, we have drive chain, sprocket, some other small parts to put on. So we're going to get started. We're going to start with the stator cover on the other side of the bike, and let's get to work. All right, guys, if you guys really like this content, you want to see the rest of this build, visit us at WBRGarage.com. Even become a member and possibly win one of our current or future builds. We've got some work to do. Let's get to work. Okie dokie. So we just finished up installing a new stator cover. This is the old one. As you can see, it had some damage on it, and our new one is all nice and pretty. So we are going to move on to the next part. And I believe instead of rearranging our entire shop, we're just going to move right on to the rear set on the left side of the bike right here in front of us, which is this lovely unit right here. So we're going to open up this blister pack, lay everything out, figure out whether we're going to do regular GP shift, assemble this thing, and get it on the bike. So that's next. Or if you guys are ready, we got stuff to do. So chipping away at our bike here, we now have the, I know you can't see because I put the cover on already, but the countershaft sprocket is on and torqued down. I put the cover over it. I got my left rear set, shifter, linkage, everything all mounted and locked in place. All my hardware is Loctited. Everything's been torqued down to spec. We're going to move over to the other side, do the other rear set, and just keep chipping away at our bike here. So let's continue on. All right, everybody, we've got our right rear set assembled. We have the rear brake master cylinder attached. Our hose is just run off because we're going to put a new reservoir on that. We're not going to do that right now. We're going to move on over to the other side of the bike. We're going to put the chain on and get it adjusted. That's our next step. So let's get that thing cut up and to the length it needs to be. wrapping up for the day with cutting the chain to length, setting the tension, and retorquing the rear axle. Today we have installed the new stator cover, countershaft sprocket cover, drive chain, left rear set, right rear set, shift lever, brake master cylinder. That's a good amount of, a good chunk of stuff that we actually got accomplished for today. I think we're pretty much all wiped out at this point, so I think we're gonna call it. We got a good amount of the hard parts on. We have a couple other hard parts to put on the front before we lay the harness in, start filling up the electronics tray, putting the battery in and all that fantastic stuff. Back to electrical. I know you guys love it. We are going to continue on installing more parts onto our rolling chassis. I would like to get the head pipe and radiator on, but before we can do that, the coolant reservoir needs to be installed. It does get tucked behind the head pipe, so we need to make sure we put that on first. I would really like to get some of the switches and perches on the handlebars, as well as the front brake calipers. We got a lot of stuff to put on this bike still. You can see that it is not quite a whole machine yet, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make this a whole machine, so if you're ready for it, let's chip away at this bike and get this thing completed. Man, do I want to do this to you guys? I don't know if I want to do this to you guys. I'm going to have to do this to you guys, but... So this is our reservoir tank. I don't know if you guys can tell that this thing looks like it's been submerged in grime for a year. So we got a new one. But there's like hoses and caps and mounting hardware and such that needs to be swapped over. But I'm going to tell you right now, I know we did not get new hoses for this part of our bike. So as gross as these are, it's time to clean. Okay, so our new coolant reservoir tank is in. I cleaned the rubber lid. It still has nice pliable rubber to it, so I didn't have to replace it, as well as the overflow hose. So what I use to clean those parts, honestly, you can use this stuff to clean just about anything on your motorcycle, minus your brake rotors. It is a Honda Cleaner and Polish. It has a really thin wax in it. So, you know, if you're cleaning body work or even, you know, something like swing arm, you really don't have to use a lot. And, you know, nice clean dry rag and just kind of polish it back off. Honestly, it's one of the best cleaners on the market for your motorcycle stuff for a quick clean. It also will remove stuff like tree sap, mold, stuff like that. You spray it on till it's nice and foamy and you let it sit until all the foam breaks down, and then you should be able to just go back through and wipe off just about anything that you're going to get on your motorcycle, except for maybe like tar. It doesn't leave any nasties behind. So Honda Polish, good product. I like it. I use it a lot. I keep a can in my garage at all times. I try to make sure that Chase has a can in this garage at all times. Sometimes we run out of it and we go without it for a little bit, but not for too long usually. So tank is in, rubber parts are clean. We're gonna move over because we're in the cleaning mode, and we're gonna clean off the mounting bracket for the side stand, which is covered in years of chain lube. It should be interesting to see what shape it actually is when we scrape the grime off of it. So we're gonna move over to the other side, get that cleaned up and installed. So if we have to take the bike off of the lift, we have a side stand to rest it on. So let's get over and move on to that now. The base of our side stand now cleaned. Some fresh hardware, some red Loctite. This is a nice thin, this is referred to as a thrust washer. It goes in between the kickstand and the bracket, so it'll open nice and easily. We got a brand new side stand to put on. It looks, still has the made in Japan sticker on it. And this is just the return spring. I didn't realize that this spring cover was clear until I dunked it in the cleaner and you could actually see the winds of the spring inside. That was kind of gross. I thought it was just like a black piece of rubber over the spring, and it was really just grime. But we're gonna install the side stand, get the spring on, everything torqued down the spec, Loctited. So like I said earlier, if we need to take this thing off of the lift, we have a side stand to put it on. Being that we're still in the spirit of cleaning, the next part that needs to go on, that needs to be cleaned first, is going to be the brake calipers. We're going to move on to those next. But let's go ahead and get the rest of the side stand on, and we'll move on to the brakes in a minute. So side stand is on. We found some good proper grade 8 stainless steel hardware to install the side stand mounting bracket with. Cleaned off the side stand switch, re-greased all the pivots, ran the wire up here so we can plug it into the harness later. And now we're going to move on to the front of the bike. We're going to tackle the front brake calipers. So we're just going to knock them apart, clean them, put new brake pads in them, and stick them on, torque them down. And then we're going to start moving into the stuff that hangs underneath the bike. So let's dig into the brakes for now and keep on cruising along. Nope, no pun intended. What I have going on is I've disconnected the original brake lines from our caliper, took the brake pads that were in the calipers out. I'm looking at how dirty the pistons are for the caliper. And if you guys could see right here, I just took a piece of Scotch-Brite and rubbed it on there for a couple of seconds, and it knocked all the grime off. My concern is that this grime is going to make it beyond this lip and get down into the seals for the pistons, and then your brake calipers will leak. Just to be sure that this isn't going to cause any issues later, I'm going to completely disassemble the calipers, both of them, left and right. We'll set them aside for the moment. All the really, really dirty parts we'll set to soak, and we'll move on to the next thing. So just give me a minute. We'll knock these apart, spread everything out, move on to the next thing. So I don't actually suggest that you go in and take your brakes apart and clean them. It's not something that I would offer as a service or in any way, shape, or form tell someone to do, unless they were having some brake issues. We did find some brake issues with the rear brake caliper on this bike when we took it apart. I don't know if you remember, one of the brake pads was worn only on either the top or the bottom. I don't remember which one it was, and it was only one of the two pads. So what I found after I disassembled the rear brake was that the pin that the caliper rides on had been bent. So the caliper wasn't sliding back and forth on the pin evenly, hence wearing the rear brake pads oddly. I didn't see any signs of this. I mean, these brake pads actually do still look pretty good. They are wearing evenly. As much as this bike has been torn down, it doesn't really make sense to just leave this the way that it is. So we're gonna knock them apart. We're gonna soak the real bad parts, and we're gonna move on to our next part for installation. So if you guys have never seen a brake caliper come apart completely, you're about to. All right, guys, so I got the calipers apart. After getting them apart, I did find some really nasty stuff inside of these calipers. So after I found that, I did a slightly better inspection of the rubber seals for the pistons for the caliper, and they don't look great. Instead of cleaning these up, putting them back together, putting new brake pads in and put it on the bike, we're gonna leave these apart. We're gonna order some new seals for the brake caliper pistons. We'll put new seals in before we put this thing back together. Obviously, we'll clean them before everything goes back together as well. And from here, we're just gonna move on. This stuff will just kind of sit to the side until our parts come, and then we'll continue on with this stuff. But we still have a head pipe to install as well as a radiator install, so let's continue on with this machine. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to start on the handlebar perches, which will include our brake lines, our throttle cables, our clutch cable, left and right switch housings, the clutch perch for the left handlebar, and in this box, the front brake master cylinder on the right side. And then once we get all that stuff on, then we can start loosely attaching brake lines. While I have all this laid out, it's going to be way easier to swap cables on this stuff now. So I'm going to do that now. Clean up my switches, get them assembled, putting cables on, get them on the bike. What we've done so far today is we've reassembled the front brake calipers with all new seals, cleaned everything up. We got the left and right handlebar assemblies set up, the clutch perch reassembled, the front brake master cylinder reassembled, cables onto their respective throttle tube and lever, as well as the front brake master cylinder reservoir. We're going to take a little break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to start attaching some brake lines and keep bolting stuff onto our chassis. Go have some lunch or breakfast or dinner, dessert, whatever you want. Don't just sit in front of the computer and do nothing. I don't really care. You do your thing. Okay, so we spent our day today installing lots of small yet very important parts onto our motorcycle, along with the brake system, brake lines, throttle cables, clutch cable. We also did a lot of the bracketry for the wiring harness, the regulator rectifier, hoops that hold the wires in place up against the frame, some bodywork hardware that we mounted for installing the bodywork later. I think where we're at now, the next reasonable spot would be to start laying in some of the electronics. So it would be like throttle bodies, wiring harness, secondary air system. So all that stuff is rapidly approaching. I think we're actually just about to that point. I think we got a decent amount of stuff done. It didn't seem like a lot because there aren't very many big parts that went on, but lots of little stuff. Lots of little important stuff. We're going to finish up today, and we will see you guys on the next episode. What's up, everybody, and welcome to another day here at the Wreck Bike Rebuild Garage. We're moving right along. Yesterday we got the wiring harness in, throttle bodies, airbox, the throttle cables, clutch cable. We finished installing the seat pan, all the electronics in the seat pan. We're going to move on to the front of the bike today and finish up the electronics up there, which will be, we have to start with the ram air duct because that holds everything else. That's going to be the headlights, the center light up front. I know all the lighting in the rear is attached to the bodywork, so we're not going to be able to do that until we're ready to put bodywork on. But we did get is we had Judd come into the shop today, and he made us some specialty nuts so we can install new studs into our cylinder head so we can get the exhaust hung. Once the exhaust head pipe is hung, we can do the radiator, hoses, fan wiring, all that stuff. We have new fuel lines to install and the fuel tank. So this bike is pretty much going to be ready to run by the end of today, minus fluids. So we do have to run out and grab some fresh fluids for this. We've been pilfering our stash for the rest of our builds in the past couple of months. So we'll get some fresh fluids for this thing, and we'll get it running here pretty soon.
Yay!
You know what? While the bike is still down here at a workable height, I think I'm just going to thread in this pressure switch. Worry about the wiring on that later, but at least get it threaded in. We'll get all the studs into the cylinder head. And then we're going to take the bike off of the lift, turn it around, so we can start working on the stuff in the front. Okay, so brand new cylinder head studs are now installed, fresh red Loctite. We are still waiting on new nuts that actually hold the head pipe onto the cylinder head. They should hopefully be here either later today or tomorrow morning or late tonight or something. So we're going to leave this as is for now. We can't really hang the radiator yet because the head pipe goes on first, and then putting the radiator in here is going to make it pretty difficult to get all the hardware here. So we're going to, for lack of a better term, we're going to change gears. We're going to bring the bike down to the ground, take it off the lift, turn it around, put the front wheel at the other end so we can turn the wheel back and forth so we can get to some of the hardware up here on the steering head. So we're going to do a little cleanup session here, get everything off of the lift, and then we're going to swap this thing around and get working on the front end. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we got the bike turned around in the lift, clamped down. We got the ram air duct installed. This is actually called the headlight holder. So we got the headlight holder installed. It also has our gauge cluster that we swapped the outside shell of our, I'm not sure if you guys actually saw that, but previously in this bike's life, it crashed and looked like it broke the master cylinder reservoir and sprayed this with brake fluid. You could feel all the pitting in this from the brake fluid. So Honda does a really cool thing where you could actually get the outside shell to your cluster, unbolt it, take all the guts from inside, stick it in the new case, bolt it back together, and stick it on your machine. Instead of having to buy a whole new cluster, which is all the electronics in here are pretty expensive. So to be able to get the shell and swap everything in that, I'll give it to Honda for that one. That was some good thought behind that one. I'll give it to him for that. But we got the cluster on, tip over sensor, both left and right headlights are only mounted with one screw currently. The rest of the hardware, these upper corners get well nuts in them, and then they get screwed with the front upper in through the headlight stay into all that. And then as well as the bottom down here, there's another tab here. And that also takes the front upper and it bolts through the back of the headlight into the upper, and everything is bolted together. So we're not ready for bodywork yet, so we're just gonna leave this hanging. It's on here pretty good. This one screw and it's leaning against the center, so it's not really going anywhere. It's not gonna break anything, so we're good there. Really what we're looking at now is fitting the fuel tank in the bike, which is now filled with 3-year-old fuel. So next step is to get all that nasty fuel out of the tank before we put it onto our machine. Too bad we don't have smell-o-vision, because you guys would have loved that one. I don't know if you had the opportunity to take a good whiff of putrid gasoline, but it's interesting. So we're gonna take it outside. Don't want to fill the shop with all the vapors from that. Empty the fuel tank out there, and then bring our empty fuel tank back in here and install it onto our bike. All right, everyone, we got a decent amount of work done today. We got the front assembly on, so ram air duct, headlight assembly holder, gauge cluster, tip over sensor. We got the rest of the harness plugged in. We got the fuel tank emptied from the horrible fuel that was in it previously. Fuel tank on. I got a little bit of extra vent line that needs to be trimmed, and we need to get some headlight bulbs, a battery, and all the fluids for this thing. Brake fluid, coolant, oil, and gasoline. That's the other fluid we're gonna need. I think we'll wait on the gas for now, but we'll get that other stuff. We're gonna run out to the store and grab all that stuff now, so when the hardware comes in for the exhaust head pipe, we'll be able to put all that stuff on and get this thing running. So we're really, really close, missing a couple small parts. We'll get back with you tomorrow on the next episode. All right, well, the days are clicking by pretty quickly right now. We're getting some pretty serious progress happening on our CBR 600RR Super Sport build. Today, we finally got our exhaust head pipe hardware, so all the new they're not really castle nuts, but the new nuts that hold the head pipe on, so we can get head pipe, radiator, fluids, and maybe we'll start this thing today.
Hey!
So we got some work to do. Let's get to it. All right, so this is our exhaust system. We went with Yoshimura. I think we actually bought a head pipe because we accidentally threw ours away. I think that's what happened here, but so we bought a Hindle head pipe, which was one of the very, very few, if not the only head pipe available for this machine. But our Yoshi came with its own, I don't know, connector pipe. I mean, this thing is gigantic, but significantly heavier. Well, not a whole lot heavier, but it's noticeable. So there is no place to put a DB killer. I was just going to say they have a spot for it, but the hole inside the end of the cone has been welded shut. Oh, so you can't even put a DB killer in this thing if you wanted to.
How unfortunate.
So now we need to see if this collector is going to fit on that collector. So I guess you missed the beginning.
Yeah.
This is the head pipe that we bought. This is the muffler that we bought. The muffler comes with a down pipe. The header system comes with a down pipe, but the down pipe that goes in between both of them does not fit either side. Like this fits the head pipe, but it doesn't fit the muffler. This fits the muffler, but it doesn't fit the head pipe. Honestly, it should fit. Let me just try a little harder. Because if this thing slides on, we're fucking golden. You know what, now that we know it'll go on, maybe we should just leave it off until it goes in there.
Yeah.
Now I'm sweating bullets, because that was tough. Oh, made a hole in my hand. Now that we know all that stuff will fit, now we can actually put the head pipe on. Okay, so we verified that our entire exhaust system is going to fit together. We were a little concerned that the muffler may not fit onto the Hindle pipes, but everything fits. It's a really tight fit, which is better than a really loose fit. So pretty happy about that. It's going to take maybe a little bit of extra effort to get it all together, but we have the head pipes installed, springs installed, the clamps at the head pipe torqued down the spec. That head pipe looks amazing. I don't know if stuff like that gets you like it gets me, but that is an absolutely beautiful set of exhaust pipes. So from here, we can go move forward and get the radiator in place as soon as we figure out all that hardware attaches. All right, so we got our head pipe on, we have the radiator on, we have all of our hoses attached, tightened. I just rerouted some drain hoses off of the coolant reservoir tank as well as off of the overflow for the fuel tank. It's pretty much it, I think. I think we're about ready to put some fluids in this thing and then push the little magic button and see what happens.
Battery.
We will need a battery. We're going to need a battery, and staring at these light bulbs sitting right here on the bench top are making me want to put the bulbs in their holes, being that I can see them right now and they're like staring at me. So I think I'm going to do that first. Then I'm going to put the battery in, so then we'll know if when we turn the key something actually happens, because we'll have lights that'll light up. So yeah, let's do that first. Okay, battery's in, head pipe is on, radiator's on, hoses are attached, all the electronics are plugged in. The gauge lights up and sweeps, shows that we don't have fuel. Neutral light is on, high beam light works. Neutral light works. The arrow is pointing up. And when I pulled it out of the bag, it said, "This way up switch."
Light her up, Brian.
Honda used their noodle this time.
Well, that's what was written on the Ziploc bag that we put it in. It said "this way up switch" instead of tip over sensor. That's I'm guessing that was a Luke label on that bag, as sounds like a Luke label for sure. You know, the "this way up switch." We're ready for fluids, and as long as this thing holds all the fluids and doesn't leak everything all over the lift, we're ready to push the button. So let's get to it. All right, so radiator is full, or I should say cooling system is full. Engine is filled with oil, battery is in. There is no fuel in the tank. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to crank it to prime the oil system. So the first time I push the button, it just doesn't start and run at 1500 RPMs without having oil everywhere. So, you know, when you crank it with the starter, it turns at like 100 RPM. Everything in here had oil in it before, so it stands to believe that it still has a little bit of oil on it. So priming the system, and away we go. Perfect. I was just waiting to see the oil level in the sight glass drop a little bit. That means it's drawing it from the sump into the engine and pumping oil everywhere it needs to be. Time for some fuel. Okay, so just as a heads up, a warning to all in the room, this is an open head pipe. All right, here we go. Success.
Yay!
I am so deaf right now. Good God, my ears are ringing so hard right now. So, that went fantastic. It was absolutely perfect. I was expecting exactly what happened. It started to wake up 1 cylinder at a time, 2 cylinders, 4 cylinders, leveled out. Idle became nice and even, accepts throttle very nicely. It drank down all the oil in the sight glass. Now I'm gonna wait for it to come back up, verify that the oil level is correct, and we won't be able to really do the cooling system until we can let it run long enough for it to fully heat soak the engine, get the thermostat open, pump all the coolant through the whole motor, make sure that it pushes all the air pockets out everywhere, and then we can go ahead and double check the coolant level. But we've got a running bike. Pretty stoked. Bike number 3, running. It's not fully clothed, doesn't have the rest of the exhaust system on it yet, but we're in a really good position. At that point, we'll be able to install the rest of the exhaust system, downpipe the muffler, so we can let this thing run all the way up to temperature. And I don't think you guys saw it, but the exhaust pipes over here on the right-hand side, it points straight up in the air like a stack off a diesel truck, and it's pointing at a lot of stuff that would melt from the heat, so we're just not going to let this thing run all the way out right now. So I think we're going to finish up for today. We'll see you on the next one. Maybe. Have a good one. So thank you all very much for joining us on another episode of Wreck Bike Rebuild Garage. If you would like to win this machine or possibly our CBR 300 Street Tracker build, getting them all mixed up now, there's so many of them. Visit WBRGarage.com, become a member, possibly win one of the machines. Check out all the awesome content. We have all the seasons laid out from first episode to last episode with all the beauty shots in between. Come check it out, and we'll see you on the next episode. Outro crew! Outro crew. Man, I'm running out of stuff to ask.
How much of a shit show do you think this is gonna be when you leave?
Well, they don't know about that.
Well, they do now.
I guess so. If people actually watch all the way to the end,
exactly.
okay, we'll do that. Okay. Outro crew, I got a little surprise for you. May not make you too happy, might make you a little sad. You may not care either way, but this is my last episode here at the Wreck Bike Rebuild Garage. I am moving on to cooler and better places, I should say. Just for me, outro crew, what was your favorite moment with me on camera this season? Don't go crazy, just for this season. Don't forget to put OC in your comments. We'll see you later.